All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Springstime. I'm Tyler Springs. Pleasure to be with you from the great city of Memphis, Tennessee, as always. But today, a special guest as we get going towards basketball season and talking about all things American Conference. It's not the American Athletic Conference anymore. It's just the American. We'll get used to that. Ray Dunne joins us from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is the voice of Temple women's basketball on radio and works locally on 97.5 The Fanatic as well. Ray, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. I know this is a busy Philly week for sports, right? You got nothing going on, right?
Nah, nothing going on. No Eagles, no Phillies. Man, Tyler, you make the call. I'm going to answer it. I'm always excited to catch up with you. This is good. We need to do this more considering it's just like the two conference. This year, I think we get one game to see one another before the tournament. So this type of catching up, I'm always a fan of it.
And see, this is where my issue starts with Temple, Ray. And I know that you're not responsible for this, okay? But it seems like I went back and I looked at just the history of the meetings between Memphis women's basketball and Temple in the last couple of years. And it feels like I would say 75% of them, at least the times that I've gotten to go to Philly, it's either the weekday morning/afternoon school day game, right? Where it's filled with thousands of shrill voiced children, yes. Or it's a Sunday morning where you'd rather be watching football, right? Like, no offense, but like that is one of those things. So I would love to get a schedule against Temple where we're in Philadelphia and it's like a typical Saturday basketball afternoon or a weeknight game. But we just hit that wrong for whatever reason.
Where do we have you this year?
Memphis is on the road at Temple this year. It is. Let's see.
You got a Sunday. I see when you got. Oh, you got a Sunday. You got a Saturday night in Philadelphia. You'll be perfectly fine. There you go.
That's right. And I'm
took care of you this year.
That's right. I appreciate that. It is too late for football, but we're at least on a Saturday night. So we'll see what we can get into there. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on. For you, this is year what doing Temple women's basketball? Year 3? Year 4?
4. Yeah, year 4.
You're right.
Happened quick.
It seems like it goes fast, but I think it goes faster when you've got a pretty decent team. And I got to say, among the more under the radar, like in terms of underappreciated teams, is Temple and Diane Richardson specifically, right? I think she has come in from Towson and been hopefully, I think, everything that they wanted her to be, even though, you're not coming away with a conference title yet. They are consistently competitive. I'm very impressed by the way Temple kind of goes along, keeps its head down as a team, as a unit, and consistently beats teams. So I've been, as somebody on the other side of that, I don't necessarily love it, but it's going to be competitive for Coach Rich and company. But what kinds of things have you seen from that team, in terms of like off-season news, what you're looking forward to? We got American Women's Basketball Media Days coming up in a couple of days, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just you mentioned it there, just consistency with Diane Richardson. If there's one thing Coach Rich does, it's win. I mean, that she's just proven that where she goes. I think it's part of just what she is in terms of building a culture. I think she's done a really good job of building a culture here at Temple that prioritizes that team success, prioritizes winning, and you see that in the type of players that they bring in. So, last year was another 20-win season, another year where I'm sitting there at the end of the season when the people that make these postseason decisions when it comes to the WBIT, I'm sitting there with like, hey, I don't know, guys, that Villanova team that's in here, we beat them. But, there's always, there was a little bit of that at the end of last season for me, at least personally. But back-to-back 20-win seasons for her. She's put Temple women's basketball right back on the map, and especially in the American. And, it's been tough with back-to-back semifinals losses to Rice, but we've been competitive. You mentioned it. We've been right there. There's a little bit of like that winning DNA that we find in the regular season. Our non-conference traditionally is pretty difficult. We'd like to test ourselves, and that usually bears it out in the American over the last 2 seasons. And we're returning about as good as you could expect of a roster from last season. Tiara East, Tariana Gary. Those are all-time owls. East, 4-year owl, 1,000-point scorer. I mean, she all-conference player. You give her every accolade in the world. She was tremendous. And on top of that, just a tremendous person and leader. Tariana Gary played her entire career with Diane Richardson, going back to Towson. And she was another tremendous leader. One of the best three-point shooters in Temple history and only played 3 years at Temple. So losing those 2 players hurts. And then in your front court, graduating some of your front court, you're going to be looking for some answers here and there. But I think in terms of what you returned, Lisa Molina turned it on in conference play. I mean, she was averaging near a double-double in the American last year in conference play, and I think that she was snubbed from one of the all-conference teams. She comes back. Tristan Taylor is a tremendous point guard. Does a great job running the show for this team. She's back. Kayla Turner, a 6th player of the year last year. She's back. And then you start looking at some of these role players. Felicia Jacobs got some run last year. Savannah Curry came along through last year. I don't want to make sure I'm not leaving out, Drew Alexander, same thing. Like, you see these players, Kellyanne Sedano got some tick last year. Like, all these players that found roles for themselves are back. And I think that's a really big thing for the continuity of this team. And then that they went out, and I think it's just going to be the nature of today in basketball. They went out and dressed the front court in the portal. I mean, you brought in someone that was top 10 nationally in rebounding in Sanaya Craig. And, you get her in here as a junior, and I'm excited to see what she can bring for you. And I'm excited to see what a number of the other additions in the forward, Chloe Miller comes in here as well, with some collegiate experience. So to me, it's always about trying to figure out what that front court looks like for this team coming up the next season, and some of that scoring, where will it come from? But it's hard not to like what they return and what they've added to this roster.
I agree. And listen, I'm glad you hit on all of those names. I think some obviously bigger than others, right? You can't ignore the absence of an East and a Gary on this roster.
Yeah.
Right? The buckets are going to have to come from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think consistently over the course of her career, Tristan Taylor has proven to be a good distributor and a fine scorer, but hasn't yet taken a leap where she's a threat. So I'm curious to see how her partnership works with Kayla Turner. That's one of the more experienced backcourts, I think, in the American coming up. And I think that's going to be pretty huge in terms of pairing those two alongside Jaleesa Molina in the front court, what you get from Sanaya Craig, and then finding out who your 5th starter is, right?
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. Savannah Curry, I think defensively was tremendous last year. She has a really good shot when she's able to get that shot off. And I know towards the end of the season, I think her and Tariana were kind of talking about just what made Tariana such a great shooter. So maybe she fits in there. And Brianna Mead comes in from Long Island, and I'm
late addition. Yeah.
I'm interested to see the addition there in that backcourt and what she could bring to this. Sedano's another name we bring up, a little bit more length in that backcourt. But you mentioned Tristan as a scorer, and I think that's a big thing about where this season goes. And I know this coaching staff's talked to her before, like the aggressive version of Tristan Taylor is the best version of Tristan Taylor. And she is a really, really nice floater, just is able to really, really work herself into space when she gets downhill. She's just really agile and can kind of create space for herself inside the paint. So I'm excited to see that next step for her as a scorer, because they didn't necessarily need that version of her before, playing on a team where as a freshman, in that backcourt, she had Aaliyah Nelson. She had Tiara East over the last 2 years. She had Tariana Gary over the last 2 years.
Stop mentioning all the killers. Stop.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm taking you down memory lane here on some of those tough games. But yeah, and then, Kayla Turner, if you need a clutch bucket, call Kayla. Like that's what it's been for us, what it was for us last year. So that backcourt I'm very excited for. And two, also, when you talk about Kayla and Tristan, just awesome personalities. Like just very, very fun people. When you're in that February road trip, we're like, man, this season we've been doing this for months. Just people that always have a smile on their face and, always are great to be around.
Yeah. Somebody's always got to fill that energy role for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to just check in with you in that front court. Obviously, Sanaya Craig, from the tape that I've seen of her in Jacksonville, rangy, can hit the glass pretty hard, should bring some athletic ability in there. I think maybe a little bit more so than what you saw last year out of an Amaya Olive or somebody like that. But I'm curious, especially from a stats standpoint, I think Jaleesa Molina and, for what it's worth, Anissa Rivera kind of, I don't know if they were on the outside in terms of all defensive team voting last year, but I felt like those two were pretty strong defensive presences. And I'm sort of curious to see how that dynamic on that end of the floor works this year.
Yeah, no, I think there was certainly some love they could have gotten from a number of different voting, but that's me. I'm the Temple voice. I'm going to look at it from cherry colored glasses, but I think definitely you mentioned Craig and what she's capable of doing. I think alongside Molina, that front court creates a very dynamic 5 on the floor, where if this team wants to get up and down the floor, this team's going to get up and down the floor. And you saw that with Anissa Rivera a season ago when they ran with that type of 5. Like what you said in terms of defensively, I'll be interested to see, what it looks like. There are some teams in this league that do have players that are, 6'4", 6'5", that present big time matchup problems. And where are you going to find that? I think Felicia Jacobs is a big answer to that. I thought there was a very pronounced growth for Jaleesa Molina from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see if Felicia Jacobs takes that. I think part of that comes from tremendous coaching in the front court. Shanita Landry does a tremendous job with the bigs on this team. She was an all-time Owl herself. You might know her brother Carl Landry that played plenty of time in the NBA. She played 14 seasons overseas. She has a very, very illustrious career that she had. Basketball, just a great basketball mind. And I think her addition to this coaching staff, working with the bigs, you saw that in the jump that Jaleesa Molina took. Felicia Jacobs, she's been in the lab with her in that way. I think she could be a big answer to some of the stopping, down low. And Jacobs, every time she's out there on the floor, is battling for a board, battling to make something happen late for that team down low. So I think she is an interesting way she fits in this. Craig, Jacobs, Molina, kind of building that out. And then, again, talking about Miller, a couple of freshmen they bring in as well. I'm very intrigued.
Right.
And honestly, if Cheyenne Swain Price could stay healthy, she also is someone that you've seen over the last 2 years just not be able to get out on the floor. Right. She's healthy. She also brings a different dynamic. So there's a lot of optionality down there, and I'm just as excited as anyone else to see it take shape, take form.
Yeah, as somebody who's been on the opposite side, obviously, I've gotten to see plenty of Temple basketball, at least in spots. But Felicia Jacobs being the one where I was like, she's only out there for a couple of minutes, but when she's out there, there are certain elements for her game that really popped. So I'm curious to see what she looks like with longer runway this season. Potentially in what could be a 3-4 rotation. And when you speak to that, I'm gonna zoom out for a second to 40,000. I feel like, okay, you said Craig and Molina, maybe two of the most athletic forwards in the conference. There's 5 teams in the neighborhood in terms of being very good consistently the last couple of years, right? I look at Temple, Tulsa, UTSA, South Florida, and North Texas. I think they're all 40-plus wins over the last couple of years in the American. But when you put Temple up there with those two against, the likes of maybe Teresa Zapala, Riley Grace, Hannah Riddick in the front court for Tulsa this year. You get the two returning forwards in Laura Putu and Carla Brito for South Florida. UTSA without Jordan Jenkins is going to be a new look probably, and certainly North Texas without Tamisha Lampkin. But I think that has a chance to be one of the best, if not the best, front court in the league. From a wide angle lens, are there other teams on this American board that just at the start of the season, you say, that's going to be a tough one?
Now, don't make me put bulletin board material out for anyone else. I'll get called to the coaching, Coach Rich will have me in the office like, hey, listen, we're going to have to cut down your podcast time. No, I mean, listen, you lay out some of those teams that have just been tremendous over the last couple of years. And I think for us specifically, the matchup problems with South Florida, it's not unique to the rest of this conference. Having been the American for a good long time here, what South Florida is in terms of a women's basketball program. So you're always going to give them the credit and respect that they deserve. And I think it's a good thing for the health of this league that you see these schools returning so many of these players we're talking about from the league and what we've seen over the last couple of years. So those backcourts, it's the front courts you lay out there.
On the men, and I was going to say to your point, on the men's side, right, the American is the conference that gets rated by other conferences, right? That's been the thing that's been talked about so much. And I'm happy, like you said, that so much of the talent has stayed in the American, especially in the front court where it's hard to find a really strong post player. I feel like that's a premium thing to have in your roster.
Yeah. And what you laid out with the way this front court lays out for us, I mean, there's a lot of talent there. And you need it. You need it in this conference. You just know what you're going to get night in and night out. You've got really good big play, and you got to be able to rebound, and you got to be able to get scoring down there. It's not an either or. It's rebounding both sides of the basketball. We're not just talking about pulling down boards on the defensive end. You got to create second chance opportunities for yourself, second chance opportunities for your scorers. You have to be on it for 40 minutes in that front court. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten alive in this American, and that's just the truth. So. You laid out a great collection there, so I'm not really going to discredit anyone that you've already said. And I'm sure, just knowing how this conference works, by the time we get to the middle of January, we're going to have seen 4 or 5 games of some team that we didn't just say that brought in players, and we're like, oh, crap, that team, once we get down to Birmingham this year, is going to be an interesting matchup for us.
Yeah, and we talked about this, I think, maybe a little bit in the offseason and end of last season, because as broadcasters, we try to meet up, at the conference tournament every year. And also, that's changed too, where since the chopping block limits it now to just 10, some people are not going to make it, which I think, we could get into that a little bit if we want to, but I like that it is going to be a more competitive conference tournament with only 10 teams in the field, in theory, right? I think, me personally, I would have opted for a format where you had some of the higher seeded teams playing earlier and then getting a bye kind of in the middle, like through to the semifinals, rather than going straight there. I wonder whether or not you're going to find, the coach of the two best teams in the league make a rust argument, if you're playing the first game of the tournament in the semis. So I don't know if you saw that or you considered it, or
yeah, I mean,
it's
a double-edged sword there. I see what you're saying with it. To me, you be able to sit around and say, okay, this is what this team's doing. We're going to be able to track what they're doing. Like, you're not getting to the tournament. You're going to get down there and watch everything that's happening. And, every team that gets caught in that rust predicament, ends up giving you a team that has played X amount of games in a row.
There's that too, yeah.
By the time you get, I wouldn't be mad if I was the semifinals. I'm thinking maybe that quarterfinals group, that 3 or 4 might be sitting there oh, we got a team that's humming right now. That's, maybe won a game or 2. We're getting them. We got to get them first and off of this, rusty period. And then once we knock off the rust there, then we're going to be tired for this well-rested team tomorrow. I think it's that middle of the pack that, if someone starts to really start playing their best basketball that week, you could end up being sawed right there at the wrong time, or play just an absolute fight of a battle and then get stuck in it. So it's tough. I mean, it's tough. It was interesting. When it came down, they were changing the format. I definitely was talking to a number of different people around college basketball. What do you think this could look like? And the latter was one that most people were like, yeah, that's probably how it's going to go for you.
Yeah.
All right.
See, this is professional radio guy. He flipped my dynamic right in his head because he'd had a different idea about it. That's what I love about you. Thinking outside the box. You talked, I think you mentioned in the offseason, or you asked, I think the group chat, hey, what road trips do you guys have? And I was looking at my calendar being like, well, outside of the obligatory Thanksgiving trip, and I'm not saying obligatory, but you feel like by now you're used to seeing a tournament trip at MTE. Maybe there aren't that many hot names necessarily on the Memphis calendar in particular, but doesn't mean they're not bringing some good teams in. The Ole Miss game when they play at home is going to be pretty huge. You get to go to Morgantown. You get to go to Richmond. You get to go to Villanova.
Right.
What are you looking forward to?
I mean, the Nova one is one you look forward. I'm a Temple grad, and I grew up in this area. I grew up actually a St. Joe's fan in this area. So Villanova. Yeah, Villanova for me is the ultimate villain. So that's a trip you look forward to. Us beating Villanova on Villanova's court last year for the Big 5 title was a big deal for me personally, and I was very quick to let anyone know in the facility leading up to that game how much that one would mean to me specifically. So yeah, that one you look forward to. Morgantown, I mean, we had West Virginia on campus last year, and that was massive. We're on linear television for that game, and that's big for the program to be battling with West Virginia, and also for Coach Rich, it'll be a nice she was assistant coach there. It'll be good to go back there and just experience a place that meant so much to her and obviously meant so much to her career. So that's going to be a great one. The Bahamas trip over Thanksgiving, I'm certainly not crying about. I'm excited about that one. And then Princeton at the end of December. I mean, that you talk about a really, really well-run program. Getting to Princeton right before the holiday, right before the break. You'd like to think that you're getting through your non-conference play, you're starting to find your identity. Going to Princeton, that's where this era started. The first game I called and the first game of the Coach Rich era, went to Princeton, and you were shown, hey, look, this is the steps you got to take to be that program. And that'll be a good, nice test for this team. So I never doubt it. I never doubt, the road trips themselves, Princeton, I'm not far from Jersey. I can go do that. Nova,
right.
I know where the main line is. I'm not really worried about that. Morgantown is a cool one. The Bahamas is a cool one. We were down in Richmond last year when we played VCU, so at least a little familiarity there. But in terms of the matchups, I never doubt they're going to put really, really good games in front of this team. Yeah,
those are strong, and going to Jadwin Gymnasium, Princeton has had a lot of people's numbers that are way better teams than Temple. In no offense, in the last couple of years, I mean they play big level basketball.
Over there. No, they do.
Yeah, and I forgot you had to see JJ Quinterly last year for West Virginia, so she had quite the little run there for the Mavs. God, for the Wings. Listen to me, for the Wings. Come on, Tyler, try and be supportive. The Dallas Wings this year, who had an interesting season for sure, but it was great to see. It's fun. We don't get that many American players in the WNBA, so it's fun when a few of them pop onto the screen and or players you played against.
Right? Yeah, no, that's been a really cool thing to watch. Yeah. And for example, watching Shea Petty and after she got with Indiana, that's been a nice, finally get her back in the league, get a nice run there, and turned what was supposed to be just a couple games into the end of the season and be a part of their run late. So that was exciting to watch from my perspective. I know we just talked about Villanova, Lucy Olson, who went to Villanova, then ended up at Iowa. We went to the same high school.
Cool.
She graduated with my brother. So to watch Lucy Olson in the W has been just an insane summer for me. Like, you are the coolest person that we were around. Like, This is the coolest experience in the world, to see you rocking a Mystics jersey and doing your thing and growing from just like, an end of bench player to a real role player for that team, and someone playing real meaningful minutes in 1 year was amazing.
Yeah. Similarly, not quite the same, but I said to somebody this week, I briefly went to the same high school with Jerry Neuheisel, who's the interim head coach for UCLA this week. And I didn't get the chance to interact with him that well. But yeah, I was going to say, maybe it makes the Temple crowd happy based on what UCLA was able to do.
To that man.
Yeah. But he was like always sort of like a good guy, like that. Like, people love being around him. Like, that was my sense of him. And I haven't seen anything in the last 15 or so years that's changed my mind that he's a good person to have around, because he's been carried off the field twice now, once in a UCLA uniform, once wearing a headset, and good for the Bruins, and good for people, right, to see him having success at the biggest levels, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's it was funny around here. The Penn State back-to-back weeks that they've had, been a tough go.
Yeah, I think I said why don't you just have James Franklin and Brian Kelly meet like in Louisville, flip each other the keys and switch places, and see if either fan base is happier there. I don't know that you get actually an increase on either level. Let me take the pulse of the Philly Misery Index this week. Where are you? Eagles, Phils? Like, I mean, a Sixers season where you may or may not have enough depth. What is the foremost concern?
Well, the Phils. I mean, as we talk, the season's on the brink. Elimination game tonight. And listen, I'm distraught over what happened in games 1 and 2. I can't really deny that. I thought the Dodgers would win the series going into the series. I didn't make any bones about that on the radio leading up to it. I didn't feel good. I feel really good about this baseball team as a team that it is. They're a 96-win team. They got length in their lineup. They got good pitching. But ultimately, you were probably the most consistent team in baseball across the regular season. The Dodgers are the most talented team. And it's a shame that you run into them to open up the postseason. But that's kind of, it's the way the cookie crumbled here. And you've certainly crumbled over the last 2 games. And that's been tough to watch. So in terms of the misery index, 1 right now is right here. The Eagles, like this AJ Brown Jalen thing, they gotta kind of figure out. That they met this week with Saquon. It was apparently productive. Like, they got to sort that out. I think they're a talented enough team where they're going to win, and winning is a great deodorant to that.
That's one of the longest running, like, just below the waterline, like uncomfortable things I feel like we've seen in the NFL over the last couple of years, where it's like, look, we know AJ Brown's talent level, obviously, and we know he's got some issues, I think, with the way maybe Jalen manages the offense. And they've won, maybe people would say, in spite of that, right? Or they've, it's been like 2 magnets that are not quite aligned, where it's just like, they were riding the edge of the razor there for a minute. What was it, three or 4 straight 1-score games, and then it just finally came up and got them.
Right. And listen, that's unfortunately, like, that's not unfortunately. Fortunately, that's just the nature of a really good football team. Like, you think about those great Patriots teams, those great Chiefs teams, like, they win games where you're like, oh my God, how in the, like, if you're a national audience watching the Eagles, you're cursing at your television. Like, how the hell am I watching this team pull this off again? Like, Jordan Davis blocking that kick was awesome for me. I could feel the ire of the entire nation as it's like, of course, the Eagles found a way to win this game again. Like, of course, bleep this team. Like, I don't blame anyone that feels that way about them. Like,
That's very much what the sentiment has been toward the Chiefs for the Patriots for so long. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where you're at. And that's a testament to who you are as an organization, So to me, the Eagles got to figure it out between those two, but like they have too much talent for me to be sitting here right now, like miserable. And it also helps that it's Giants, Vikings, Giants before you get to the bye. So, you should take care of business tomorrow, Thursday Night Football against the Giants. Should take care of business there.
You gonna get a ticket for that one?
What?
You gonna get a ticket for that one at the Meadowlands?
So it's interesting. That game is up at the Meadowlands,
right?
And if the Phillies are to be eliminated in Game 3, Thursday night will be just the Eagles. It was going to be Phillies Eagles with Game 4. I always assumed there would be a Game 4. Clearly, that was a poor assumption on my part. If they do end up getting eliminated tonight, I think I will purchase the ticket. I think that'll be like, midnight after the game ends because it's a 9:00 first pitch on the East Coast.
I know.
You should. Our morning guys are hosting the watch party for the game tonight.
Come join me, Central Time Zone. Come join me. I know it's much better.
Oh my, yeah. Well, listen, I was in San Diego, not this past summer, the summer before, like the spring before. And the Sixers playing it was the spring because the Sixers don't play in the summer. And the Sixers playoff game on a Sunday started at 10 a.m. See, this is awesome. I was like, I'm at a bar at 10 a.m. Like
that's right. I have done the 10 a.m. start in a bar in San Diego with a buddy of mine. It would have been about probably 10 years ago, where it was Bears Raiders, but nobody cares. It's on at like 10 a.m. in the morning. You'll order like a chicken and waffles, whatever else you want. It's amazing. It's amazing living.
Good call.
Yeah, it's amazing living out there. So I agree with you. If we could all swap even for just a little bit out to West Coast time or even Central or Mountain time. They ought to be a national rule. I'll never run on a political platform, but if I did, part of the campaign I think is we got to set a maximum late game time, right? No later than like what do you want to say? 7:45 Eastern, 8:00 Eastern, 8:15 Eastern.
8's fine.
8's fine, right? 8 you can handle.
Fine.
But some of these like the second window games on Monday Night Football, and like the late start on the NBA, that'll wear you out.
And this is coming from a guy that most nights in the summer, I will, like after a Phillies game gets done, pop on West Coast baseball. Like and it makes sense to start a 10 o'clock game between the, Padres and the Dodgers. Like I enjoy West Coast baseball. I just know what's in front of us. And like, if they get eliminated, I know what tomorrow's show is. And honestly, if they win, I know what tomorrow's show is. Like we're losing our minds here. I've lost my mind. I'm broken. I'm a broken man. This has been talking about the Phillies last 2 days has been more therapeutic than it's been anything.
Well, I hope we've been able to put you back together a little bit, talking with something else, right? That city can turn itself in knots even when nobody's playing. So I know what it's got to be like in a week like this, where two of the four I would say lead oxen on the sports train are kind of pulling apart at this point. But hey, I'll let you go on that. We'll chop it up a little bit more maybe during the regular season, but. Awesome. Looking forward to a little more, women's basketball discussion, but also, the American at large. We didn't even hit Casey Keeler. We'll do that some other time if it's still going that way, right? Delaware native coming back to his home stomping grounds. It looks good for the Owls. That's got to be fun.
Immaculate. It has been so fun to watch this with Casey Keeler, and also just the dude that he is. Like, it's just the energy around that program right now, picking up that win last Saturday over UTSA. You got a homecoming over the weekend against an unbeaten Navy team on national television.
Good luck.
I'm excited, man. It's good to have energy around Temple football right now. That was the one thing, like everyone in Philadelphia with the Phillies and the Eagles over the weekend was like, man, what a tough weekend. I'm like, tough for some of you.
That's right.
Like, you Penn State fans, it might have been 0 for 3, but I got one.
I love that. And we also didn't even hit on Adam Fisher, which may have things going in the right direction. So that's obviously jury's out, but we'll let's see down the road. Yeah.
I'm an eternal optimist. You know that.
I like that. And it's part of what makes you a good egg, Ray. We appreciate you. Hey, thank you, brother. And we'll do this again sometime.
Sounds good to me.
He's Ray Dunne. I'm Tyler Springs. This has been Springstime.